नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल वैष्णव विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तरशतश्मद श्रील भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल वैष्णव विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तरशतश्मद श्रील भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल वैष्णव विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तरशतश्मद श्रील भक्ति विज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल वैष्णव विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तरशतश्मद श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विश्व महाभागवत श्री गोक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल विश्व श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल विश्व वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप गौरिया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतिदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गोपाल प्रसाद वृंद की जय। नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। धन्यवाद प्रणाम गर्गराज जी, प्रद्युम्न प्रभु, रसेश्वरी माता जी। And Pradyumna Prabhu is asking, is there any difference in the purports from the 1972 version to the later version of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Oh my God, there's hours and hours and hours and books and so much on that topic. And I'm actually not so hardcore on either side, on the editing side or on the not editing side. I have lots of thoughts on this, but anyhow, I can send you some videos if you're interested. Alright. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedu Stang Sarva Bhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayit. Shrinvatang Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam. Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay Kshiptashtakama madhe Kripamai tvam sharanam prapanna Vrinde namaste charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam Swarup Manjari and Madhavi Didi. Hari Bol. Okay, so we read from verse 31 yesterday, right? So let's just... Okay. So the citizens welcome Pṛthu Maharaj. And Maitreya describes Pṛthu's rule, his bodily features and speech, and then instructions of Pṛthu Maharaj to the citizens. First, Pṛthu, he addresses the devotees in the crowd. And it's the king's duty to give Dharma Shiksha and his destination. A king's duty is to give Dharma Shiksha and then destination of the king. King shares in all the pious activities of the of the citizens, as well as in their sins. And so, the destination of the king, I think, really very largely depends on the destination of all the general people also, right? So, Pṛthu Maharaj, he tells everybody to do your duties and bestow mercy on me, so that I don't have a bad destination also, because I'm going to have to take all your sins, like a portion of all your sins. So please don't sin. And then he explains what the supreme authority is and confirming authority, and then pure bhakti. Okay, let's read from 31. Anyways, let's see. The confirming authorities are the Vedas and the great persons like Manu, Uttanapad, Dhruva, Priyavrata, Anga, Brahma, Shiva, Prahlad, and Bali, but not the abominable persons like Vena who are bewildered about Dharma. They also agree that the only bestower of the benedictions of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and Swarga is the Supreme Lord. Okay. Oh, and the supreme authority is Shastra. The Supreme Lord. Okay, let's, so, this is what we read yesterday. By one's inclination to serve the Lord's feet, devotional service cleanses one's mind. By one's inclination to serve the Lord's feet, the contamination in the mind acquired over innumerable births is immediately cleansed, and day by day one's spiritual inclination increases. It is like the purification done by the Ganges water emanating from the Lord's toe. How is it? By one's service to the Lord's lotus feet. What's the best kind of service? Best kind of bhakti is kirtan. And we hear Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Through kirtan, the mirror of one's heart is cleansed. A devotee doesn't surrender to material life again. A devotee whose mind has been cleansed of unlimited contamination, who has developed detachment and is strengthened by bhakti yoga, who has taken shelter of the Lord's feet, he does not surrender to material life full of suffering. Link. The citizens might have asked, since we are drowned in our household activities, how can we worship the Lord with pure bhakti? Pṛthu then advised them to do karma mishra bhakti.
Render devotional service without reservation unto the Lord's so render devotional service without reservation unto the Lord's lotus feet that fulfills all desires. How should you do that? Render that devotional service? By engaging your minds, words, and bodies, and by offering the results of your varnashram duties. So that is karma mishra bhakti. Now this is bhakti mishra, so that's bhakti mixed with karma. Now this is karma mixed with bhakti. The Lord is transcendental, but for the benefit of the conditioned soul, He accepts different types of sacrifice with material qualities like rituals, mantras, ingredients, names, and the purposes of the performers. Note: but the sacrifice becomes devoid of material qualities by the act of offering it to the Lord, which gives it a small component of bhakti. So this is karma, but it's mixed with a little bit of bhakti. Above was bhakti, but it was mixed with a little bit of karma. Or no, maybe it was mixed with a lot of karma, I don't know. But, okay. The Lord manifests in different bodies, which are a combination of pradhan, kala, ashai, etc. And He supplies the intelligence. He supplies the intelligence of the sacrificer so that he may offer actions to the Lord. The Lord Himself then appears as the various results of those actions, just as fire appears differently in various types of woods. Note: offering karmas to the Lord gives one gyan mishra bhakti, by which one attains the Lord. However, the appearance of gyan and the resultant attainment of the Lord depends on the amount of bhakti and faith in offering those karmas. Oh wait, I didn't get that. The appearance of gyan and the resultant attainment of the Lord depends on the amount of bhakti and faith in offering those karmas. And just one thing should be clear is that you don't need to do Jnana Mishra Bhakti to get Bhakti. You don't need to do Karma Mishra Bhakti to get Bhakti. Bhakti is fully 100% independent. And so you can just do Bhakti. There isn't any need to. Anyhow. Okay, the citizens were saying, "We have become successful by your instructions. We will worship the Lord." And then he says, "All you citizens are worshiping the Lord, the enjoyer of sacrifice and the supreme Guru, by executing your occupational duties. Thereby you are bestowing mercy upon me." Pṛthu establishes the glories of Brahmins and Vaishnavas in order to firmly establish bhakti. A royal family should not exhibit its material prowess before Brahmins and Vaishnavas, who are glorified by their characteristic powers of tolerance, penance, knowledge, and education. By worshipping their lotus feet, the feet of the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, the eternal and foremost person, Lord Hari, obtains the opulence of his staunch reputation, which purifies the entire universe. So even the Lord, he obtains reputation which purifies the entire universe by worshipping the feet of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Wow, that's just such a... All right, this is where we read up to. Krishna Premabhati is asking, what is the online version of this book? Where is it, you mean? I got it from prabhupadbooks.com. I'm going to go there right now, actually. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is prabhupadbooks.com, chapter 21. Wait, no, 38, right? That's what we're on. The Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Wait, are we on 38 or 39? I think it's 39. Let me check. 39, okay. Yat sevaya shesha guhashaya swarad viprapriyastu shati kamamishvara tareva tad dharma parar vinitai sarvatmana brahma kulam nishevyatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is everlastingly independent and who exists in everyone's heart, is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage without reservation in the service of the descendants of the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. For he is always dear to Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and they are always dear to him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is said that the Lord is most pleased when he sees one engaged in the service of his devotee. He does not need any service from anyone because he is complete. But it is in our own interest to offer all kinds of services to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is out of his mercy that he accepts our service, because he doesn't need our service. It's for us that we're serving. These services can be offered to the Supreme Person not directly, but through the service of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings, Charya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keva, which means that unless one serves the feet of the Brahmins and Vaishnavas and Brahmins, one cannot get liberation from the material clutches. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya prasadar bhagavat prasado. By satisfying the senses of the spiritual master, one can satisfy the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, this behavior is not only mentioned in scriptures, but also followed by acharyas. Pṛthu Maharaj advised his citizens to follow the exemplary behavior of the Lord himself, and thus engage in the service of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Pumal labhetani nati velam atmana prasidato tyanta shamam swanta swayam yanetta sambandha nishevayatata parankrimatrasti mukam havir bhujam. By regular service to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, one can clear the dirt from his heart and thus enjoy supreme peace and liberation from material attachment and be satisfied. In this world, there is no fruit of activity superior to serving the Brahmin class, for this can bring pleasure to the demigods for whom the many sacrifices are recommended. In Bhagavad Gita 265, it is said, Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanir asyo pajayate. Unless one is self-satisfied, he cannot be freed from the miserable conditions of material existence. Therefore, it is essential to render service to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas to achieve the perfection of self-satisfaction. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Tadira charana sevi bhakta sanevas janame janame hoye abhilash. Birth after birth, I desire to serve the lotus feet of the acharyas and live in a society of devotees. A spiritual atmosphere can be maintained only by living in a society of devotees and by serving the orders of the acharyas. The spiritual master is the best Brahman. At present, in the age of Kali, it is very difficult to render service to the Brahman kul, or the Brahman class. The difficulty, according to the Varaha Puran, is that demons, taking advantage of Kali Yuga, have taken birth in Brahmin families. Rakshasa kalem ashrita jayante brahma yonishu, from the Varaha Puran. In other words, in this age, there are so many so-called caste Brahmins and caste Goswamis who, taking advantage of the Shastra and of the innocence of the people in general, claim to be Brahmins and Vaishnavas by hereditary right. One will not derive any benefit by rendering service to such false Brahmin kulas, Brahmin families. One must therefore take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and his associates. It's interesting, Srila Prabhupada says one must also take shelter of the associates of Guru, and should also render service to them, for such activity will greatly help the neophyte in attaining full satisfaction. This has been very clearly explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur in his explanation of the verse Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana, Bhagavad Gita 2:41. By actually following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga as recommended by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, one can very quickly come to the transcendental platform of liberation as explained in this verse. Atyanta Shamam. The particular use of the word anati velam, without delay, is very significant, because simply by serving Brahmins and Vaishnavas, one can get liberation. There is no need to undergo severe penances and austerities. The vivid example of this is Narad Muni himself. In his previous verse, he was simply a maidservant's son, but he got the opportunity to serve exalted Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and thus in his next life, he not only became liberated, but became famous as the supreme spiritual master of the entire Vaishnava disciplic succession. According to the Vedic system, therefore, it is customarily recommended that after performing a ritualistic ceremony, one should feed the Brahmins. Ashnatanta kalu tattvako vida Shraddhahutam jnān mukha ijjanamabhi Navai tata chetanaya bahishkrite Hutashane paramahamsa paryagu. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta, eats through the fire sacrifices offered in the names of the different demigods, he does not take as much pleasure in eating through the fire as he does in accepting offerings through the mouths of learned sages and devotees, for then he does not leave the association of devotees. Purport. According to Vedic injunctions, a fire sacrifice is held in order to give food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the names of the different demigods. While performing a fire sacrifice, one pronounces the word Swaha and mantras such as Indraya Swaha and Adityaya Swaha. These mantras are uttered to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead through demigods such as Indra and Aditya. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Naham tishtami vaikunte yoginam hridayeshu va tatra tishtami narada yatra gayanti marbhakta. I am not in Vaikuntha, nor in the hearts of the yogis. I remain where my devotees engage in glorifying my activities. It is to be understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not leave the company of his devotees. Fire is certainly devoid of life, but devotees and Brahmins are the living representatives of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, to feed Brahmins and Vaishnavas is to feed the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. It may be concluded that instead of offering fire sacrifices, one should offer foodstuffs to Brahmins and Vaishnavas, for that process is more effective than fire yajna. The vivid example of this principle in action was given by Advaita Prabhu. When he performed the Shraddha ceremony for his father, he first of all called Haridas Thakur and offered him food. It is the practice that after finishing the Shraddha ceremony, one should offer food to an elevated Brahmin. But Advaita Prabhu offered food first to Haridas Thakur, who had taken his birth in a Mohammedan family. Therefore, Haridas Thakur asked Advaita Prabhu why he was doing something which might jeopardize his position in Brahmin society. Advaita Prabhu replied that he was feeding millions of first-class Brahmins by offering the food to Haridas Thakur. He was prepared to talk with any learned Brahmin on this point and proved definitely that by offering food to a pure devotee like Haridas Thakur, he was equally as blessed as he would have been by offering food to thousands of learned Brahmins. When performing sacrifices, one offers oblations to the sacrificial fire, but when such oblations are offered to the Vaishnavas, they are certainly more effective. Yad brahmanityam virajan sanatanam shraddha tapo mangalamona samyamai samadhina bibhrati harta drishtaye yatre damadarsha iva vabhasate. In Brahminical culture, a Brahman's transcendental position is eternally maintained because the injunctions of the Vedas are accepted with faith, austerity, scriptural conclusions, full sense, and mind control and meditation. In this way, the real goal of life is illuminated, just as one's face is fully reflected in a clear mirror. Purport. Since it is described in the previous verse that feeding a living Brahman is more effective than offering oblations and a fire sacrifice, in this verse it is now clearly described what Brahmanism is and who a Brahman is. In the age of Kali, taking advantage of the fact that by feeding a Brahman one obtains a more effective result than by performing sacrifices, a class of men with no Brahminical qualifications claim the eating privilege known as Brahman Bhojan, simply on the basis of their birth in Brahman families. Feed me. In order to distinguish this class of men from the real Brahmins, Maharaj Pṛthu is giving an exact description of a Brahman and Brahminical culture. There's a really awesome article by Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, all on this topic of feeding Vaiṣṇavas and feeding Brahmins also, I think you could say. It's called Vaiṣṇava Seva. It's in one of the Raise the Harmonious articles. He gets very deep into this topic. Anyways, one should not take advantage of his position simply to live like a fire without light. A Brahman must be fully conversant with the Vedic conclusion, which is described in Bhagavad Gita. Vedaishcha sarvar aham eva vedya, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. The Vedic conclusion, the ultimate understanding or Vedanta understanding, is knowledge of Krishna. Actually, that is a fact, because simply by understanding Krishna as he is, as described in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame devyam evam yo veti tattvata, one becomes a perfect Brahman. The Brahman who knows Krishna perfectly well is always in a transcendental position. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityaitan Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service and who does not fall down in any circumstance at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Therefore, a devotee of Lord Krishna is actually a perfect Brahman. His situation is transcendental, for he is free from the four defects of conditional life, which are the tendencies to commit mistakes, to be illusions, to cheat, and to possess imperfect senses. Brahma pramad vipralipsa karanapatav. A perfect Vaishnav or Krishna-conscious person is always in this transcendental position because he speaks according to Krishna and his representative. This is an important point. A perfect Vaishnav or Krishna-conscious person is always in this transcendental position. Why? Because he speaks according to Krishna and his representative. He doesn't speak his own stuff. He only repeats the words of the Lord and Sri Guru. Because Vaishnavas speak exactly according to the tune of Krishna, whatever they say is free from these four defects. For example, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that everyone should always think of... Actually, I'm doing a shloka class today, and this is going to be really helpful. For example, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that everyone should always think of him. Everyone should become his devotee and offer him obeisances and worship him. And ultimately, everyone should surrender unto him. That's the verse, Madhumana bhavamad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. So I just want to save this though, because I will use this in the shloka class. There. These devotional activities are transcendental and free from mistakes, illusion, cheating, and imperfection. Therefore, anyone who is a sincere devotee of Lord Krishna and who preaches this cult, speaking only on the basis of Krishna's instructions, is understood to be virajam, are free from the defects of material contamination. A genuine Brahman or Vaishnav therefore depends eternally on the conclusion of the Vedas, or Vedic versions presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Only from Vedic knowledge can we understand the actual position of the Absolute Truth, who, as described in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, is manifested in three features, namely impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and at last, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This knowledge is perfect from time immemorial, and the Brahminical or Vaishnava culture depends on this principle eternally. One should therefore study the Vedas with faith, not only for one's personal knowledge, but for the sake of spreading this knowledge and these activities through real faith in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Vedas. The word Mangala, auspicious in this verse, is very significant. Srila Sridhar Swami quotes that to do what is good and to reject what is not good is called Mangala, or auspicious. To do what is good means to accept everything favorable to the discharge of devotional service, and to reject what is not good means to reject everything not favorable for discharging devotional service. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we accept this principle by rejecting 4 prohibited items, namely illicit sex life, intoxication, gambling, and flesh eating, and accepting the daily chanting of at least 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and daily meditation 3 times a day by chanting the Gayatri Mantra. In this way, one can keep his Brahminical culture and spiritual strength intact. By following these principles of devotional service strictly, chanting 24 hours a day the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one makes positive progress in spiritual life and ultimately becomes completely fit to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Because the ultimate goal of studying or understanding the Vedic knowledge is to find Krishna, one who follows the Vedic principles as described above can from the very beginning see all the features of Lord Krishna, the Absolute Truth, very distinctly, as one can see one's own face completely reflected in a clean mirror. The conclusion is, therefore, that a Brahman does not become a Brahman simply because he is a living entity or is born in a Brahman family. He must possess all the qualities mentioned in the Shastras and practice the Brahminical principles in his life. Thus, he ultimately becomes a fully Krishna-conscious person and can understand what Krishna is. How a devotee continuously sees Krishna face to face within his heart is described in the Brahma Samhita 538 as follows. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya guna swarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The devotee, by development of pure love for Krishna, constantly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Sham Sundar, within his heart. That is the perfectional stage of Brahminical culture. Teshamaham pada sarojareno arya vahayadi kiritamayu yam nityadabi bhrata ashupapam nashatyamum sarva guna pajanti. O respectable personalities present here, I beg the blessings of all of you, so that I may perpetually carry on my crown. Okay, sorry, let me reread that. O respectable personalities present here, I beg the blessings of all of you, so that I may perpetually carry on my crown the dust of the lotus feet of such Brahmins and Vaishnavas until the end of my life. Who can carry such dust on his head? He who can carry such dust on his head is very soon relieved of all the reactions which arise from sinful life, and eventually he develops all good and desirable qualities. Purport. It is said that one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means unflinching faith in the Vaishnava or the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, develops all the good qualities of the demigods. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarvar gunastatra samasate sura. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5:18-12. Prahlad Maharaj also said, Naisha matis tavad urukramangrim. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 7:5-32. Unless one takes the dust of the lotus feet of a pure Vaishnava on one's head, one cannot understand what the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. and unless one knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's life remains imperfect. A great soul who has fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord after understanding Him fully and after repeatedly undergoing austerities and penances for many, many lives is very rare. The crown of a king is simply a big load if the king or head of state does not actually bear the dust of the lotus feet of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. In other words, if a liberal king like Pṛthu Maharaj does not follow the instructions of Brahmins and Vaishnavas, or does not follow the Brahminical culture, he is simply a burden on the state, and he cannot benefit the citizens. Maharaj Pṛthu is the perfect example of an ideal chief executive. Oh my God, they're burning plastic right out of my window, it smells like. I'll just tolerate it. Okay. Gunayanam shila dhanam kritagyam vridashayam samvrinate nupsampada prasidatam brahma kulam gavam cha janardana sanu charaschamahyam. Whoever acquires the Brahminical qualifications, whose only wealth is good behavior, who is grateful, and who takes shelter of experienced persons, gets all the opulence of the world. I therefore wish that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His associates be pleased with the Brahmin class, with the cows, and with me. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped with the prayer Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahma Hitaya Cha. Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Thus it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead respects and protects the Brahmins and Brahminical culture, as well as the cows. In other words, wherever there are Brahmins and Brahminical culture, there are cows and cow protection. In a society or civilization in which there are no Brahmins or Brahminical culture, cows are treated as ordinary animals and slaughtered at the sacrifice of human civilization. The specific mention of the word gavam by Pṛthu Maharaj is significant because the Lord is always associated with cows and His devotees. In pictures, Lord Krishna is always seen with cows and His associates, such as the cowherd boys and the gopis. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot be alone. Therefore, Pṛthu Maharaj said, actually my Gurudev once gave an instruction to somebody to never paint Krishna alone. But Krishna should always be with one devotee, because Krishna alone, without any devotee, without any, is Nirvishesh Brahma. Without the Shakti, and all devotees are ultimately emanating from, Anyways, I'm going to continue reading. Therefore, Pṛthu Maharaj said, Shanu Charascha, indicating that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always associated with His followers and devotees. A devotee acquires all the good qualities of the demigods. He is Gunayanam, the reservoir of all good qualities. His only asset is good behavior, and he is grateful. Gratitude for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of the qualities of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Everyone should feel grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he is maintaining all living entities and supplying all their necessities. As stated in the Vedas, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. The Supreme One is supplying all necessities to the living entities. The living entity who is therefore grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is certainly qualified with good characteristics. The word vridashayam is very significant in this verse. Vriddha refers to one who is advanced in knowledge. There are two kinds of old men, he who is advanced in years and he who is experienced in knowledge. One who is advanced in knowledge is actually vriddha, Gyan Vriddha. One does not become vriddha simply by advancing in age. Vriddhashayam, a person who takes shelter of a superior person who is advanced, in knowledge, can acquire all the good qualities of a Brahmin and be trained in good behavior. When one actually attains good qualities, becomes grateful for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, he is endowed with all opulence. Such a person is a Brahman or a Vaishnava. Therefore, Pṛthu Maharaj invokes the blessings and mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his associates, devotees, Vaishnavas, Brahmins, and cows. Maitreya uvacha iti bruvanam nripatin pitrideva dvijataya tuštuvur hrishtamanasa sadhuvadena sadhava. The great sage Maitreya said, after hearing King Pṛthu speak so nicely, all the demigods, the denizens of Pitriloka, the Brahmins, and the saintly persons present at the meeting congratulated him by expressing their good will. Purport: when a person speaks very nicely at a meeting, he is congratulated by the audience, who expresses their goodwill with the words sadhu, sadhu. That's a way of saying like bravo, bravo. This is called sadhuvad. All the saintly persons, pitas, the denizens of Pitriloka, and demigods who were present at the meeting and heard Pṛthu Maharaj express... I'm having a hard time reading. All the saintly persons, pitas, and demigods who were present at the meeting and heard Pṛthu Maharaj express their goodwill with the words sadhu, sadhu. They all accepted the good mission of Pṛthu Maharaj, and they were fully satisfied. Putrena jayate lokan iti satyavati shruti brahmadanda hata papo yadvino natyataratama. They all declared that the Vedic conclusion that one can conquer the heavenly planets by the action of my mind got distracted. They all declared that that's the Vedic conclusion that one can conquer the heavenly planets by the action of a putra, or son, was fulfilled. For the most sinful Vena, who had been killed by the curse of the Brahmins, was now delivered from the darkest region of hellish life by his son, Maharaj Pṛthu. Purport: according to the Vedic version, there is a hellish planet called Pūt, and one who delivers a person from there is called Putra. The purpose of marriage, therefore, is to have a Putra, or a son who is able to deliver his father, even if the father falls down to the hellish condition of Pūt. Maharaj Pṛthu's father, Vena, was a most sinful person and was therefore cursed to death by the Brahmins. Now all the great saintly persons, sages, and Brahmins present in the meeting, after hearing from Maharaj Pṛthu about his great mission in life, became convinced that the statement of the Vedas had been fully proved. The purpose of accepting a wife in religious marriage as sanctioned in the Vedas is to have a putra, a son qualified to deliver his father from the darkest region of hellish life. Marriage is not intended for sense gratification, but for getting a son fully qualified to deliver his father. But if a son is raised to become an unqualified demon, how can he deliver his father from hellish life? It is therefore the duty of a father to become a Vaishnava and raise his children to become Vaishnavas. Then, even if by chance the father falls into a hellish life in his next birth, such a son can deliver him, as Pṛthu Maharaj delivered his father. Hiranyakashipuschapi Bhagavan Nindayatama Vivikshur Atyagat Shuno Praladasyanubhavata. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu, who by dint of his sinful activities always defied the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, entered into the darkest region of hellish life. But by the grace of his great son, Prahlad Maharaj, he also was delivered and went back home, back to Godhead. Purport: when Prahlad Maharaj was offered benediction by Nrsingadev, due to his great devotion and tolerance, he refused to accept any benediction from the Lord, thinking that such acceptance was not befitting a sincere devotee. The rendering of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in expectation of a good reward is deprecated by Prahlad Maharaj as mercantile business. Because Prahlad Maharaj was a Vaishnav, he did not ask a benediction for his personal self, but was very affectionate toward his father. Although his father tortured him and would have killed him if he had himself not been killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prahlad Maharaj begged pardon for him from the Lord. This favor was immediately granted by the Lord, and Hiranyakashipu was delivered from the darkest region of hellish life, and he returned back home, back to Godhead, by the grace of his son. Prahlad Maharaj is the topmost example of a Vaishnav who is always compassionate towards sinful persons suffering a hellish life within this material world. Krishna is therefore known as Paradukha Dukhi Kripam Buddhi, or one who is compassionate towards others suffering and who is an ocean of mercy. Like Prahlad Maharaj, all pure devotees of the Lord come to this material world with full compassion to deliver the sinful. They undergo all kinds of tribulations. Suffering them with tolerance, because that is another qualification of a Vaishnav, who tries to deliver all sinful persons from the hellish conditions of material existence. And the best example of that is Srila Prabhupada. If you read his diary when he was first in America, you see all the crazy tribulations, all the tribulations he had to go through. And he suffered them all with complete tolerance. Yeah. Vaishnavas are therefore offered the following prayer: Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. The chief concern of a Vaishnav is to deliver the fallen souls. Viravarya pita pritva sama sanjiva sashvati yasya drishyachute bhakti sarvalokaika bhartari. All the saintly Brahmins thus addressed Pṛthu Maharaj: O best of warriors, O father of this globe, may you be blessed with a long life, for you have great devotion to the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the master of all the universe. Purport: Pṛthu Maharaj was blessed by the saintly persons present at the meeting to have a long life because of his unflinching faith and his devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although one's duration of life is limited in years, if by chance one becomes a devotee, he surpasses the duration prescribed for this life. Indeed, sometimes yogis die according to their wish, not according to the laws of material nature. Another feature of a devotee is that he lives forever because of his infallible devotion to the Lord. It is said, Kirtir yasya sajivati. One who leaves a good reputation behind him lives forever. Specifically, one who is reputed as a devotee of the Lord undoubtedly lives forever. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking with Ramananda Rai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired, "What is the greatest reputation?" Ramananda Rai replied that a person who is reputed as a great devotee has the greatest reputation, for a devotee not only lives forever in the Vaikuntha planets, but by his reputation, he also lives forever within this material world. Aho vayam kyadya pavitra kirte tvayaiva natena mukundanata ya uttama shloka tamasya vishnur brahmanya devasya katam vyanakti. The audience continued, "Dear King Pṛthu, your reputation is the purest of all, for you are preaching the glories of the most glorified of all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the Brahmins. Since due to our great fortune we have you as our master, we think that we are living directly under the agency of the Lord." Purport: the citizens declared that through being under the protection of Maharaj Pṛthu, they were directly under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding is the proper situation of social steadiness within this material world. Since it is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer and leader of all living entities, the king, or the executive head of the government, must be a representative of the Supreme Person. Then he can claim honor exactly like the Lord's. How a king or leader of society can become the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also indicated in this verse by the statement that because Pṛthu Maharaj was preaching the supremacy and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, he was therefore a proper representative of the Lord. To remain under the jurisdiction or administration of such a king or leader is the perfect status for human society. The primary responsibility of such a king or leader is to protect the Brahminical culture and the cows in his state. Natyadbhutam idam natat tavajivyanushāsanam prajanurago mahatam prakriti karunatmanam. Our dear Lord, it is your occupational duty to rule over your citizens. That is not a very wonderful task for a personality like you, who are so affectionate in seeing to the interest of the citizens, because you are full of mercy. That is the greatness of your character. That is not a wonderful task for a personality like you, because you're full of mercy. Okay. Purport. A king's duty is to give protection to his citizens and levy taxes from them for his livelihood. Since the Vedic society is divided into 4 classes of men, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, their means of livelihood are also mentioned in the scriptures. The Brahmins should live by spreading knowledge and should therefore take contributions from their disciples, whereas a king should give protection to the citizens for their developments to the highest standard of life, and he can therefore levy taxes from them. Businessmen or mercantile men, because they produce foodstuffs for the whole of society, can take a little profit from this, whereas the Shudras, who cannot work either as Brahmins, Kshatriyas, or Vaishyas, should give service to the higher classes of society and be provided by them with a supply of the necessities of life. The symptom of a qualified king or political leader is mentioned herein. He must be very merciful and compassionate to the people, and see to their prime interest, which is to become elevated devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Great souls are naturally inclined to do good to others, and a Vaishnava especially is the most compassionate and merciful personality in society. Therefore, we offer our respects to a Vaishnava leader as follows. Vancha kalpatarubhyashcha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Only a Vaishnava leader can fulfill all the desires of the people. They are Vancha kalpataru. And he is compassionate because he is the contributor of the greatest benefits to human society. He is Patit Pavan, the deliverer of all fallen souls, because if the king or the head of government follows in the footsteps of the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, who are naturally leaders in missionary work, the Vaishnavas will also follow in the footsteps of the Vaishnavas and Brahmins, and the Shudras will give them service. Thus, the entire society becomes a perfect human institution for combined progress to the highest perfection of life. Adyanastamasa paras tvayopasadita prabho brahmyatam nashtadrashtinam karma bir daivasam gitai. The citizens continued, Today you have opened our eyes and revealed how to cross to the other side of the ocean of darkness. By our past deeds and by the arrangement of the superior authority, we are entangled in a network of fruitive activities and have lost sight of the destination of life. Thus we have been wandering within the universe. Purport. In this verse, the words karma bir daiva samgitai are very significant. Due to the quality of our actions, we come to the association of the modes of material nature, and by superior arrangements, we are given a chance to enjoy the fruitive results of such activities in different types of bodies. In this way, having lost sight of their destinations in life, all living entities are wandering in different species throughout the universe, sometimes getting birth in a lower species, and sometimes existence in higher planetary systems. Thus, we are all wandering since time immemorial. It is by the grace of the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead that we get the clue of devotional life, and thus progressive success in our life begins. Here, this is admitted by the citizens of King Pṛthu. In full consciousness, they admit the benefits they have derived from the activities of Maharaj Pṛthu. Okay, this is the last verse. Namo vivriddha sattvaya purushaya mahiyase yo brahma kshatram avishya vibharti dam satejasa. Dear Lord, you are situated in your pure existential position of goodness. Therefore, you are the perfect representative of the Supreme Lord. You are glorified by your own prowess, and thus you are maintaining the entire world by introducing Brahminical culture and protecting everyone in your line of duty as a Kshatriya. Purport. Without the spread of Brahminical culture and without proper protection from the government, no social standard can be maintained properly. This is admitted in this verse by the citizens of Maharaj Pṛthu, who could maintain the wonderful situation of his government due to his position in pure goodness. The word Vivriddha Sattvaya is significant. In the material world, there are three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. One has to be raised from the platform of ignorance to the platform of goodness by devotional service. There is no other means for elevating one from the lowest stage of life to the highest stage but the execution of devotional service. As advised in the previous chapters of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, one can raise his life from the lowest position to the highest simply by associating with devotees and hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam regularly from their mouths. Shrinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridantasto hyabhadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam. When one engages in devotional service in the first stages of hearing and chanting, the Lord, who is in everyone's heart, helps the devotee in cleansing his heart. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1:2-17. In the gradual cleansing process, one is relieved of the influence of passion and ignorance and is situated on the platform of goodness. The result of association with the qualities of passion and ignorance is that one becomes lusty and greedy. But when one is elevated to the platform of goodness, he is satisfied in any condition of life and is without lust and greed. This mentality indicates one's situation on the platform of goodness. One has to transcend this goodness and raise himself to the pure goodness called Vivriddha Sattva, or the advanced stage of goodness. In the advanced stage of goodness, one can become Krishna conscious. Therefore, Maharaj Pṛthu is advised here as Vivriddha Sattva, or one who is situated in the transcendental position. But Maharaj Pṛthu, although situated in the transcendental position of a pure devotee, came down to the position of a Brahmin and Kshatriya for the benefit of human society, and thus gave protection to the entire world by his personal prowess. Although he was a king, or Kshatriya, because he was a Vaiṣṇava, he was also a Brahmin. As a Brahmin, he could give proper instruction to the citizens, and as a Kshatriya, he could rightly give protection to all of them. Thus, the citizens of Maharaj Pṛthu were protected in all respects by the perfect king. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 21st chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam entitled Instructions by Maharaj Pṛthu. So tomorrow we will read chapter 22, we'll read the first part of chapter 22, Maharaj Pṛthu's meeting with the 4 Kumaras. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashman Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Guru Deva Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashman Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashman Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashman Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaiṣṇavas Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachai Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Krishna Vashacha. Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. Look, this is what we just read now over the past, this right here is what we just read over the past 4 days. That's chapter 21, and this is chapter 22, so even longer than chapter 21. And this is chapter 23. So the next 3 chapters are going to be pretty long. But yeah, this is, to get through this much is how long it takes us in 4 days. Anyhow. It is we read about, today we read, let's see, how many words did we read today? We read 6,000 words today. And so, yeah, every day we read around 6,000 words. And 5,500 to 6,000 words. And chapter 23 is 28,201 words. Yeah. Okay. So, what is there? Is there comments? Rupamanjari says, this is a little confusing because I thought lust and greed were anarthas that were not actually totally removable for conditioned souls in the modes of nature, even in the mode of goodness. I think in the mode of goodness, somebody isn't, maybe you're always affected by these qualities to some degree, but in the mode of goodness, you've definitely risen above them a lot. But yeah, only a devotee fully rises above those things. What is it? Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, all those 6 enemies, the 6 foes on the path of. And there's a song by Narottam Das Thakur. How does it go? Kama something Krishnarpane, Krodha Bhakta Dveshi Gane. Anyways, Narottam Das, I forgot the song, but I used to know it, but I can't remember it right now. But Narottam Das Thakur, he writes how the devotees utilize each one of these things: Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, not Matsarya, all of them except for Matsarya. He explains how to use these in Krishna's service, actually. So we can use our lust, our Kam, by making our desires, because Kam means desires or lust and like that. So we make our desires to fulfill the desires of Krishna. We offer our desires to Krishna. Like our desires become one with Krishna's almost. Then Kam Krodha is we use our anger towards those people who are against the devotees. Like those who are not against, who are like inimical to the devotees. We show our anger toward them. All these different qualities. There is we become intoxicated by it. Becoming intoxicated in the holy name. I don't remember exactly what he wrote. But so these actually aren't things that we fully just give up. We just have to use them in the right way. So only a devotee can really properly do this. But I think also somebody who's on the Brahminical level, in a material sense at least, is able to somewhat subdue all these different. I mean, real goodness means freeing yourself from all different material contamination and stuff like that. It's like becoming more and more elevated like that, till at least at the final point of goodness is liberation from this material world, isn't it? And then beyond that is Vishuddha Sattva, like pure transcendental goodness, which is. But goodness is relieving us of all these bad qualities and stuff. All right. Prajumna Guru, these are not really related to what we're asking these questions. You can ask these questions to me personally. All right, Haribo. Jai Shri Radhe. I'm very politely using the second person even though. Haribo.